Way back in math class, do you remember learning about the mean and the median of a series of numbers? The mean was the average of a series of figures. The median was the middle number in a series of numbers. What about the mode? Do you remember the mode? The mode was the most reoccurring figure out of that data set. Well, I took the mode of 20 different mock drafts on the internet by the top experts in draft discussion and created one big mock draft. You could call it the mock of all mocks. You're watching Buffalo Live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Buffalo Live, your one-stop shop for live, professional, play-by-play reaction to every Buffalo Bills game, plus NFL draft discussion. Tomorrow is Christmas. I am so excited. The Bills are going to either take a player or make a trade back, trade up. It is such a wonderful time of the year, and I can't wait to get into today's show. If you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you may have seen Matty Glab's article posted this week on BuffaloBills.com. It was titled The Most Mocked Prospects. So she broke down the position groups that were most frequently mocked to the Bills. She broke down the specific players. It's a great article. I highly recommend you go check it out. I kind of took a different spin on exactly what Matty did. I took the most mocked prospects for every team, and I created the mock draft of all mock drafts. So that's what we're going to be doing on today's show. I took 20 mock drafts from the biggest experts. There are no trades in this mock draft. Okay, so if I did encounter a trade in these mock drafts that I looked at, I just skipped over them. So take that as you will. I'm going to go at these 5 at a time, maybe give some analysis here and there, and we're really going to talk about what happens with the Buffalo Bills pick at 28. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The number 1 overall pick, Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams. 2, Washington selects quarterback Jayden Daniels out of LSU. 3, New England Patriots, quarterback Drake May out of UNC. 4, Arizona Cardinals select wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. And 5, Los Angeles Chargers select offensive tackle Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. So, first of all, every single mock draft I looked at, Caleb Williams was selected first overall. So, that's a lock. That's going to happen. The Bears will be selecting Caleb Williams as their first pick on Thursday night. So good for the Bears. Now, Washington at 2. This is really interesting because most of the mock drafts I saw had Jayden Daniels selected, obviously. That's why it was on this mock draft. Drake May was selected some. It was really between the two, right? That's the big discussion. But I find it interesting that most experts think Daniels is going because I personally believe that Drake May will be selected second overall. I think Daniel Jeremiah made a great point that Washington would not have traded away Sam Howell if they were wanting to take Jayden Daniels. I think that Drake May and Sam Howell are best friends. You don't want to have those two guys competing against each other on the same roster. So if Washington is preparing to draft Drake May, get his best friend out of the building. That's just going to create kind of an awkward dynamic in the quarterback room. I personally think that the Washington Commanders will be taking Drake May, but the majority of experts here have Jayden Daniels selected second overall. So then you have Arizona taking Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, and this is really the point in the draft where I saw a lot of trades. But if the Cardinals decide not to trade, it was a lock that they take Marvin Harrison Jr. Every mock draft that I looked at had the Cardinals selecting Marvin Harrison Jr. First non-quarterback player selected, first wide receiver selected, obviously. So, and boy, he's a great player. And then 5, Chargers taking Joe Alt. Again, lots of trades here. Really wonder what the Chargers are going to do. But if they don't trade, the consensus pick that they had was Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. as the first offensive lineman and first offensive tackle selected in the draft. Okay, next 5. Number 6 overall, the New York Giants select wide receiver Malik Nabers out of LSU. Tennessee Titans, 7th overall, select, try to get his first name right, Olumayua Fashanu, Penn State tackle. 8th overall, Atlanta Falcons select edge rusher Dallas Turner out of Alabama. 9th overall, Chicago Bears select Rome Odunze out of Washington, wide receiver. And with the 10th pick, the New York Jets select tight end Brock Bowers out of Georgia. So, the Giants selecting the second wide receiver at 6th. Again, this is a huge trade candidate. But Malik Nabers, excellent player. I could definitely see the Giants taking Nabers here, especially with the fact that, let's face it, the Giants have not had a top-tier wide receiver since Odell Beckham Jr., like close to 10 years ago. So Nabers goes 6th. The Tennessee Titans, because the Chargers take Joe Alt, settle for Fashanu. The majority of those mock drafts that I looked at had the Titans selecting Joe Alt because the Chargers trade back. Joe Alt's still on the board. But if they don't, if the Chargers take Joe Alt, then Fashanu was the most frequently selected guy. But it wasn't often. Most often, Chargers were trading. 8th overall, the Falcons select the first defensive player in the draft. Dallas Turner, he's also first edge rusher to go there. And by the way, this is a lock. 95% of mock drafts that I looked at, out of the 20 or so that I looked at, had Dallas Turner going to the Falcons. There were a couple that had a different player, but I definitely foresee that Turner goes to Atlanta. Chicago takes the 3rd wide receiver, Odunze, and there's your top 3 gone. And the Jets take the first tight end off the board, Brock Bowers. Excellent player. If I'm a Jets fan and this happens, he falls, I would be thrilled. Next 5, Minnesota takes defensive tackle Byron Murphy out of Texas. 12th overall, Denver takes quarterback Bo Nix out of Oregon. 13th, Las Vegas Raiders select offensive tackle J.C. Latham out of Alabama. The New Orleans Saints select offensive tackle Talisi Fuaga out of Oregon State. And the Indianapolis Colts select defensive back Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. A few thoughts here. Byron Murphy goes to the Vikings. He's the first defensive tackle to go. I don't foresee the Vikings doing this, especially after acquiring the 23rd overall pick from Houston. I think they're going to hunt for that quarterback. And again, as I mentioned, you had a lot of trades in the 5-6 area, Chargers, Giants, maybe even the Cardinals at 4 overall. The teams that were trading up were the Minnesota Vikings to select the quarterback that they want to go, that they want to take. So I don't expect them to go defensive tackle at 11, but maybe. For some reason in my head, I'm wanting to say Denver Nuggets. Denver Broncos select Bo Nix, so he becomes the 4th quarterback taken behind Williams, Daniels, and May. I could definitely see Denver hopping Minnesota. Minnesota needs a quarterback. Denver needs a quarterback. If I'm Denver, I know that what Minnesota wants. I want to trade up and hop them so that I can get the quarterback that I want and prevent them from taking him. So, and then at 15, Indianapolis selects the first DB taken off the board, Quinyon Mitchell. Great player out of Toledo. So that's that group of 5. Next up, 16th overall, the Seattle Seahawks take Troy Fautanu out of Washington. Jacksonville selects DB Terrion Arnold. 18. This is a very interesting pick. Cincinnati Bengals select wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. 19th overall, the Rams select edge rusher Laiatu Latu out of UCLA. Pittsburgh selects Amarius Mims, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. 18th is a huge pick if I'm Brandon Beane. If Thomas somehow makes it past Cincinnati, I am getting on the phone with the Rams ASAP and seeing what I can do to move up 8 spots. 8 spots is not that bad compared to trying to move up to the early teens or 10s. Like, I'm not interested in that. The capital's going to be way too much, in my opinion, as a Bills fan. Maybe there's a team that's wanting to trade out for cheap, but I doubt it. So if Thomas makes it past Cincinnati, call the Rams and see if they're willing to trade back. The Rams aren't usually a team that super values early draft picks as much as trading for players and acquiring players through free agency. So I'd call the Rams, see what you can do. Next 5, 21st overall, the Miami Dolphins. Select interior offensive lineman Graham Barton out of Duke. Philadelphia Eagles select cornerback Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. Minnesota goes defensive tackle again, Jerzon Newton out of Illinois. Dallas selects interior offensive lineman Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. And Green Bay goes Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle from Oklahoma. So Graham Barton becomes the first interior offensive lineman to go. It's either between him or Powers Johnson from Oregon. Both great players. Probably not first-round talents, but if not, they're high second-round talents. There's only usually about 20 first-round graded players in every draft, according to most experts in NFL GMs. So he becomes the first to go as a interior offensive lineman. And then this is kind of silly because Minnesota takes another defensive tackle, Jerzon Newton. How stupid would it be if Minnesota took both Byron Murphy and Jerzon Newton in the first round? That'd be a stacked defensive line, but no quarterback, no offensive players taken there. I don't see that happening at all. Green Bay could go in so many different directions. I saw many different types of players drafted to Green Bay, Cooper DeJean being one of them. But the most frequently selected guy was Tyler Guyton. Next 5, Tampa Bay selects edge rusher Chop Robinson. 27, Arizona selects edge rusher Darius Robinson. So 2 Robinsons in a row. And here we are, 28th pick. I'm going to dive into this a bit longer after I get through the rest of these 3. Buffalo Bills select wide receiver Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. After the Bills, 29th, Detroit takes Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama, and then Baltimore, Jordan Morgan, the offensive tackle. And then I'll just go ahead and say the last 2 there. San Francisco, 31 overall, takes Ladd McConkey out of Georgia, and KC Chiefs select Xavier Worthy out of Texas. So there you go. There's the rest of your draft. Now let's talk about the 28th pick. Okay? So, before the Bills selected Adonai Mitchell, let's discuss who is on the board. First of all, quarterbacks. Now, this is important because there could be a team still wanting a quarterback and that we could trade, partner with in a trade. There are 2 talented quarterbacks still on the board at this point, J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. So maybe if you're Brandon Beane and Brian Thomas is gone, maybe Adonai Mitchell's gone too, and you just don't like who you've got there on the board, you call up one of these teams who might be interested in taking 2 of these guys or one of these guys. Who else is on the board? Ladd McConkey, Troy Franklin, Keon Coleman, Ricky Pearsall, and obviously Adonai Mitchell. Those are some top wide receivers. Xavier Legette as well, Xavier Worthy. So the Bills could take one of those wide receivers at this point. Offensive tackles, you've got Jordan Morgan, you've got Kingsley Suamatia. Interior offensive lineman guys, you got Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, Christian Haynes. You've got 3 DBs there, or not 3 DBs, more than 3. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Cooper DeJean, who I definitely saw mocked to the Bills a lot. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., TJ Tampa, Tyler Nubin. All those DBs are available for Brandon Beane to take. And then on the defensive line, not a whole lot of guys, but Braden Fisk, defensive tackle, and Jared Verse, defensive end out of Florida State. And also every single linebacker is available. There was not a single linebacker in this mock draft in the first round taken. So those are the guys you could take at this point. Here are my concluding thoughts, if the draft kind of falls that way. And I was really thinking about this morning. The Bills' need for a wide receiver is so obvious that I think the Bills need to make at least a small trade up. If you are sitting there at 28th hoping for Thomas or Mitchell or McConkey to fall to you, let's say you just have that one player you want. I mean, every team in the NFL knows that the Bills need a wide receiver. That is their top need. And so I definitely expect Arizona, who, has so many needs at this point. They have a lot of draft picks too, so maybe they won't want to trade out of it. I expect them to get a call from other teams saying, hey, we've got a guy. He's a wide receiver. The Bills are probably going to take him. We want to hop up before they do. Would you be interested in a trade? So that's why I think Brandon Beane needs to at least move up just a bit to lock in a better spot to take the guy that he wants. Whether it's, if between these guys that fall, whether it's McConkey, Mitchell, Pearsall, I don't know. I'm between Mitchell and McConkey. I'd probably take Mitchell. Probably. But I think they're very similar players, similarly graded players from what I've seen. Maybe Brandon Beane's content with, okay, let's say Mitchell gets taken right before you. Well, McConkey's still there. I'll just take McConkey and sit at 28. But, man, if there is a run at wide receivers before the Bills, I'd probably trade back. I'd probably try to find more value in guys like Xavier Legette, Xavier Worthy, Ricky Pearsall, Troy Franklin, and grab a couple of them. So let's see. So if hopped up, and here's the thing, you probably need to, if you're going to trade back, consequently trade back up. So, for a team who's wanting to move up like 8 spots to where the Bills are at, I don't have the draft order right in front of me right now. They're going to give you their second, right, that you're trading back to. And they're probably going to give you a 4th or 5th. I don't know the Jimmy Johnson board exchange rate off the top of my head, but it's not like it's going to be, another second-round pick. That's way too much value for moving up just 8 spots at the tail end of the first round. So I think the Bills will have to take their second-round pick, and then they get that 5th or whatever it is, 4th, maybe a 3rd. I think it's probably a 4th. And then take your 4ths and then move back up to maybe the tail end of the second round. So you've got, maybe a guy like Pearsall and maybe a guy like Legette. That would be so awesome if the Bills did that. I'd be thrilled. So that's going to do it for this edition of Buffalo Live. If you enjoyed, please like this video. Comment, what do you think if this NFL draft fell in this way? What do you think the Bills should do? What would you want them to do? If maybe you're a fan of another team, what would you hope your team does? Lastly, please consider subscribing to Buffalo Live. Once again, I'm your host, Kyle. Thank you so much for watching. Go Bills, and God bless.